Welcome to our YouTube video series on corporate law and incorporations. My name is Christopher Neufeld of Neufeld Legal. And in this particular video, we will be discussing the distinctions between professional corporations and regular corporations. Now, a professional corporation is a corporation that is permitted to be used by certain professions as designated by the governing statute. So what we have is legal, medical, and dental professional corporations oftentimes. And depending upon the jurisdiction, we can also have engineering professional corporations, chiropractic professional corporations, therapeutic professional corporations, and other such professional corporations. But it's always dependent upon the enabling and governing statute of the jurisdiction within which the person is practicing and is licensed for that profession, and what that professional regulatory body has, in effect, negotiated with the government. So one of the key things that we'll see as a distinction is that in Canada, only at the provincial level are you able to incorporate a professional corporation. Professional corporations do not exist at the federal level. Next, these professional corporations are restricted to the professions empowered by the enabling enacting statute. So unless the jurisdiction within which you are working allows for that professional to be incorporated as a professional corporation, that profession cannot incorporate as a professional corporation. Next, professional corporations require the approval of the profession's governing body, such that you have to be typically in good standing. You have to pay fees to your governing body to undertake the incorporation in addition to the government's own fees, and you have to pay annual fees on an ongoing basis. And this process is continued and proceeded in that manner. Next, only regulated professionals with the governing body's approval can be voting shareholders, directors, and officers in the professional corporation. You have to review this. There are slight differences in some jurisdictions with respect to the directors and officers' capability. But with respect to voting shareholders, and for the most part, directors and officers, you have to be a professional, and it has to be submitted to the governing body for their approval and put on their records. Now, family members, they can be non-voting shareholders in the professional corporation. Naturally, there are limitations, and in certain provinces, they can even be part of trusts. But that's the extent and the expansion. You can't have non-family people who are friends or business associates being shareholders typically in a professional corporation. Now, as opposed to a regular corporation, when you incorporate a professional corporation, and this is reflected in the Articles of Incorporation, professionals agree not to have standard limited liability protections that one sees in regular corporations, but instead they are personally liable for the actions of the corporation, such that what you see is they are responsible for their own malpractice, for their own issues. So whereas a regular corporation might be used as a somewhat effective shield on the personal liability side, a professional corporation is by statute precluded from undertaking this and shielding the professional, whether it's a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist, an engineer, from having personal liability for their own faults. Next, statutes for professional corporations require inclusion of specific wording into the Articles of Incorporation. This is designed so that it's clear from the outset and for purposes going forward that they are subject to certain different statutory standards and also liability standards that can change over time. And this is the trade-off they get for allowing themselves to be professionally incorporated and thereby gain some of the oftentimes tax benefits associated with incorporation. On the same front, the Articles of Incorporation for a professional corporation must be pre-approved by the profession's governing body. And that's to make sure that they include the specific terminology in their Articles of Incorporation, and that they are typically also looking to structure themselves to only have professionals who are approved by the regulating body as part of the professional corporations, voting shareholders, and oftentimes also the officers and directors of that corporation. And finally, a professional corporation makes itself subject to the investigative and regulatory oversight from the profession's governing body. So they take on this added oversight and trade-off once again, so as to get the ability of being incorporated and getting the tax benefits and the income splitting benefits that are typically associated with incorporation. They nevertheless then have to do all the additional steps, undertake the additional costs associated with this ongoing regulation and oversight and investigative ability, so that they are staying compliant with the additional laws and requirements that go along with being a professional corporation. And these are some of the key elements that would distinguish a professional corporation from a regular incorporation. Thank you.